the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, he's been on a spree recently addressing various legislative bodies in different countries. He addressed, for example, the US Congress. He addressed the Canadian Parliament. He addressed the Israeli Knesset, their version of the parliament. And he also addressed the German Bundestag. I'm going to show you just very tiny clips of these, and then we'll discuss further. Let me begin by showing you his address to the Germans. Okay? Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Але ви ніби знов за стіною. Так, не берлінською, але посеред Європи, між свободою і неволею. І стіна ця міцніше з кожною бомбою, яка падає на нашу землю, на Україну. З кожним рішенням, яке не приймається заради миру, не приймається, хоча може допомогти. Канцлере Шольц, зруйнуйте
Oh, goodness.
Німеччині лідер.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Заслуговуєте. І чим ваші нащадки будуть тільки
This is just horrible. I'm just going to stop it right there. This is so horrible. He's trying so desperately to appeal to Germans via their history, you know, and it just comes off as atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. Again, for those of you who are not in the loop, former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, he once gave a speech in Berlin in 1987. And he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And he was talking about the Berlin Wall, right? I don't know what this is supposed to be. There's no wall. There's no wall in Berlin anymore. I mean, besides the obviously there are bits of it left that you can visit, but there's no actual wall anymore. That's long gone. I don't know what the hell this is supposed to mean. Let me show you the one where he talks to the U.S. Congress, okay?
Пані та панове, друзі, американці, в своїй величній історії ви маєте сторінки, які дозволяють вам зрозуміти українців, зрозуміти нас зараз, коли це потрібно, саме зараз потрібно найбільше. Згадайте Перл-Харбор. Страшний, трагічний ранок 7 грудня 41-го року, коли ваше небо було чорним від атакуючих вас літаків. Згадайте це. Згадайте 11 вересня. Страшний день 2001 року, коли зло намагалося перетворити ваші незалежні території, ваші міста у поле битви, коли були атаковані люди, звичайні, невинні люди, атаковані з повітря, так, як ніхто не чекав, так, як ви не могли це зупинити. Наша держава переживає це щоденно, зараз, прямо зараз і щоночі, протягом вже 3 тижнів.
Again, here with the Americans, he compares it to Pearl Harbor 9/11. I need to stop you right there, Mr. Zelensky, because, you know, according to Chuck Schumer, the January 6th insurrection is the worst thing since Pearl Harbor. So you failed to mention that. I'm sorry, there's no sympathy for you. You know, you forgot the number one atrocity, which was the January 6th insurrection. I'm sorry. It's just not going to fly. Let me show you the one where he speaks to the Israeli, the Knesset. Okay? Let's take a look at what he has to say. If you thought what I just showed you was cringy, wait till you hear this one. You're not ready. You're not ready.
Я хочу, щоб ви задумались про цю дату, про 24 лютого, про початок цього вторгнення Росії в Україну. 24 лютого. Цей день двічі увійшов в історію. І обидва рази як трагедія. Трагедія для українців, для євреїв, для Європи, для світу. 24 лютого 1920 року була заснована Націонал-соціалістична робітнича партія Німеччини. І не залишити від нас, від вас нічого, і навіть імені і сліду. Вони називали це остаточним рішенням єврейського питання. Ви пам'ятаєте це і, впевнений, ніколи не забудете. Але почуйте, що звучить зараз в Москві. Почуйте, як там кажуть знову ці слова. Остаточне рішення, але вже по відношенню, так би мовити, до нас, до українського питання. Чи можете ви пояснити, чому ми...
Wow. He actually went there. He actually did it. He just compared what's happening in Ukraine to the Holocaust. He tried so desperately to do it as well, right? Like he was trying to justify it somehow by finding a date. He was like, February 24th. What do we have, guys? Oh yeah, Heinrich Himmler took a shit on this date. That's it. Use that date. Yeah, I mean, yes, the Nazi Party was founded on that day, but I don't see the connection here. I think what he's doing is very cringy, and I can't believe that I'm saying this. Like I'm half Syrian. I cannot believe for the first time in my life I'm actually agreeing with Israelis on something. But this is really just a ridiculous comparison. What's happening in Ukraine is nothing compared to the Holocaust. They're just not the same thing. It doesn't mean that, you have 2 million refugees. It's probably more now in Ukraine. You have people dying, but to compare that to the Holocaust is absurd. What you're doing is you're minimizing what the Holocaust was, which astonishes me because he's Jewish. Zelensky himself is Jewish. Ukraine has a lot of Jews who died in the Holocaust. Many Israelis are actually Ukrainian Jews. I'm just stunned. I have no words. Like the other ones were cringy. This is just, if someone else said what Zelensky said, they would call you a revisionist. They would say you're rewriting the history of the Holocaust. I'm astonished. I'm stunned. Like I really. Again, I can't believe for the first time in my life, this dude made me agree with some Israelis. Like, that's just, what the hell is going on? Can I just show you the reaction? This guy was the former Israeli ambassador to the US, right? Let me show you his reaction to this. And he's not the only one, but I'm going to just show you his to start with. Okay, take a look.
Well, it's certainly understandable to understand President Zelensky's despair, his pain, the anguish of the Ukrainian people. If his purpose was to win the hearts and minds of the Israeli people, the speech backfired. It was a boomerang.
Yeah.
The constant mentions of the Holocaust, the comparison of the Ukrainian situation with the Holocaust, the whitewashing of the Ukrainian role in the Holocaust, mentioning of the Iron Dome system, which would be particularly ineffective for Russian cruise missiles, and a lack of appreciation for the very risky path that Prime Minister Bennett has taken by trying to mediate.
Right. So those are other points that I'm going to get to in a second. Let me show you some tweets in reacting to this, right? From Jews and Israelis. Let me show you some tweets. So I just showed you the Israeli ambassador to the US. Here's someone on Twitter saying, Israelis are upset that Zelensky made comparisons to the Holocaust, cheapening it, and even dabbling in revisionism. For context, here's some examples of Israelis who made comparisons to Holocaust for political expediency. And then there's a whole thread underneath, of course. But I just want to show you the current reactions. Here are some politicians, Israeli politicians reacting to this. Unfortunately, I can't translate it in the one you're looking at, but I'll do it on the side and read the translation to you. So basically, they're saying that I appreciate the president of Zelensky. I appreciate the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and support the Ukrainian people in heart and deed. But it is impossible to rewrite the terrible history of the Holocaust. Genocide was committed on Ukrainian soil. The war is terrible, but the comparison to the horrors of the Holocaust and the final solution is outrageous. And again, I 100% agree with that. 100% correct. It's ridiculous from a moral point viewpoint, a historical viewpoint. It's just an absurd comparison, and it really highlights how cringy this attempt by Zelensky to like prey on people's emotions or play on their heartstrings, whichever you want to use. It's just backfiring. Here's another one from an Israeli politician. They said that it says, quote, that it is said that no one is caught in time of grief, but if the speech of Zelensky, the Jewish president of Ukraine, was delivered on normal days, they would say that he borders on Holocaust denial. Yeah, exactly. If someone else said that, that's what the reaction would be, And by the way, I want to show you something that's before I continue into the other points that Zelensky made. I want to show you that this is absolutely tragic. This happened today. You have a Holocaust survivor in Ukraine. He's 96 years old, and he was killed today, right? So his name is Boris Romanchenko. This guy, according to the Auschwitz Memorial, so they have a Twitter account, an official Twitter account. This guy was in 4 concentration camps. 4 Nazi concentration camps. He survived all of that horror just to be killed today. I mean, that's just awful, really. You know, and again, it kind of highlights how the ones that are suffering in the war, always civilians. It's always civilians who are paying the price. You know, it's really tragic. Here, this is again from BBC. You can see underneath, he survived detention in 4 separate concentration camps between 1942 and 1945. Ya haram. Really, it's heartbreaking. But just going back to Zelensky's speech, he made some other points. He starts blaming the Israelis for not giving him Iron Dome. And the Israeli ambassador to the US, the former Israeli ambassador, he touched on that. He said that, you know, Zelensky's begging for the Iron Dome, which doesn't even make sense because it's useless against, Russian cruise missiles. It's correct because the Israelis, they have several, surface-to-air missiles, depending on the range. So short range would be the Iron Dome. And after that, you have, I think, David's Sling, it's called. And then after that, you have Arrow 1, 2, 3. So, the first is for short range, medium range, long range missiles. The Iron Dome is useless, even if the Israelis gave it to you, which they don't want to. It's absolutely useless. It's not going to help you. But look what he says over here. It's quite incredible. Take a look at this.
Державні інтереси свого народу, і ви точно можете допомогти нашому. Захистити наше життя українців, життя українських євреїв. Можна довго запитувати, чому ми не можемо отримати від вас зброю, або чому Ізраїль не ввів потужні санкції проти Росії, чому не тисне на російський бізнес, але відповідь все одно обирати вам, шановні брати і сестри. І вам з цією відповіддю потім жити, народи Ізраїлю.
So you can see what he's saying. He's saying the choice is yours to make, brothers and sisters, and you must then live with your answer. Like, I don't understand what that means. He's basically like trying to shame them or guilt them into giving him weapons. I mean, and the next one is even more incredible. Look what he says next. He says the Ukrainians had their choice 80 years ago. He says, quote, "We saved Jews." You didn't save Jews. You killed a lot of Jews. I mean, this is a historical fact. You had several massacres in Ukraine. They killed Jews, they killed Poles, and that's the whole point that we were talking about the other day, how this Ukrainian mayor has a portrait of Stepan Bandera on the wall behind him while he's talking to PBS. That guy was implicated in the Holocaust in Ukraine. I'm stunned by this he's not just comparing what's happening in Ukraine to the Holocaust. He's saying that Ukraine helped the Jews. No, that's not correct. That's just, there are many massacres. I mean, look, Claudia was kind enough to put together some of these graphs. Let me show you this. This is just the number of Poles that were killed between 1943 and 44 in the On and Upa massacres, right? So in Volhynia, you had between 40,000 to 60,000 victims. You had in eastern Galicia between 30 to 40,000 victims. 4,000 victims in Lesser Poland, 100,000 victims in total. And that's, of course, that's not counting the Holocaust itself in Poland, the Warsaw Ghetto, and the millions of Poles, Jews, Polish Jews who died in Poland, right? We're just talking about what happened outside. And I'm stunned. I don't know what to say to this, because I'm a big World War II geek. And I don't know what to say to this. I can't believe he's saying this as a Jew as well. You would think he knows his own history a bit better than that. The fact that the Israelis are offended really says everything. Because if you're on the side of the United States, which he is, he's on NATO's side, you got to do really a lot to piss off Israel. And he's done that. He's effectively done that. I'm stunned. I'm stunned. Let me just play the rest of the clip for here where he's speaking, yeah?
Шановні брати і сестри, і вам з цією відповіддю потім жити, народи Ізраїлю. Українці зробили свій вибір. 80 років тому рятували євреїв, і тому серед нас є праведники народів світу, народи Ізраїлю. Тепер і у вас є такий вибір. Дякую вам. Дякую за все.
Again, he's guilting them, trying to shame them. Wow. And there are many articles about this. You can look in Newsweek magazine. The headline reads, Zelensky sparks indignation in Israel with, quote, infuriating Holocaust comparison. And there's another thing I wanted to show you, that actually when he gave this speech, Zelensky spoke to the Israeli Knesset, the Arab, because you have some Palestinians who are actually citizens, Israeli citizens. They call them Israeli Arabs. You have some of them who are in parliament, in the Knesset, and they boycotted his speech. So this is from the Times of Israel. They say Arab Israeli members of the Knesset skip Zelensky's Knesset speech and say that NATO imposed this war. The two Arab Israeli parties chose to snub Zelensky's speech to the Knesset on Sunday night, with only one Arab lawmaker out of the 10 showing up. And then they said that, quote, our position is that NATO and its leader America imposed this war. And that's in comment they gave to the Times of Israel. And of course, he said worse things than that. So Zelensky was effectively saying that, he was saying to the Israelis, you guys are surrounded by people who want to wipe you out. He's saying that the situation is basically the same. Ukraine is surrounded by someone who wants to wipe them out. This is absolutely ridiculous. Arabs want Palestinians to, have what's theirs, to be given equality, to have their state. Remember, Arabs, including Palestinians, been living under 400 years of Ottoman occupation. And then, of course, you had the British mandate after World War I, and then Israel. So, I mean, there's been, give or take 500 years of occupation, and Palestinians got screwed the most out of everyone. And Israel's occupying the Golan Heights in Syria, Sheba Farms in Lebanon. It was occupying South Lebanon for many decades before, until 2000. And then it attacked East Lebanon again in 2006. The Palestinians, 70 plus years, they've been living under military rule, under colonialism, Israeli colonialism, right? And again, that's in addition to all the others before them. The Arabs just want the Palestinians to be treated with dignity, to be a member state. That's it. So again, I don't appreciate him furthering this myth. So in addition to his historical revisionism about the Holocaust, he's also claiming that, Arabs just want to murder Israelis and Jews for no reason. Like, this is ridiculous. Again, that's what you will hear from Israeli politicians to try and justify how they treat Palestinians and Arabs, and it's ridiculous. So, even in how he pissed off everyone in that speech is what I'm trying to say. He pissed off everyone. He really did. The Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, let me show you what he said. You guys know that he replaced Netanyahu just a few months ago. This is what he told reporters during a press conference on Monday. So he said that basically, quote, he cannot imagine being in Ukraine president's shoes, but the Holocaust is unlike any other event in human history and must not be compared to current war. He really angered everybody, Zelensky. He angered everyone. It's quite astonishing. And I think, the appeals to the Bundestag in Germany, the US Congress, those were bad enough, but this one is really just, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. I don't even understand what he's comparing to 9/11. It's not like 9/11. Again, don't get me wrong. It doesn't minimize the toll on the Ukrainians. They're the ones that are being used as a pawn by NATO. They're the ones that are caught in the middle. The mantra right now is NATO will fight Russia down to the last Ukrainian. Right? Not down to the last NATO soldier. No. Down to the last Ukrainian. They're being used. They'll send them weapons, but they're not going to fight for them. It doesn't even matter to them. They don't even care. So that's the tragedy of it. But I don't understand what he's doing comparing to the Berlin Wall, the Holocaust, 9/11. Just cut it out. You can make the case without doing all of that. It really backfired. I don't know what he was thinking.